Welcome back to another tip of the week, and I'm answering another question this week, and that's partitioning your HD, your hard drive. Do you know how to do that or why you would want to do that? So let's see that now. Why would you want to partition your hard drive? Partitioning your hard drive is a way to have the computer understand one physical hard drive as two different ones. And that's very useful. Remember what the video where I talked about why you should clean your hard drive? Well, that's one reason, because that way you can leave free space for your RAM memory to borrow, and be always certain that you won't be touching that, because you partition and you separate your one hard drive for the OS, for the operating system, and another one for your files. Of course, you're always going to have to clean, because remember we talked about those temporary files that are made. But that way, you guarantee that you're not going to be cluttering your hard drive with your own files. So that's one reason. Another reason is if you want to have two different operating systems, and that's actually done on installation. So let's say you have Windows, and then you want to install Linux, and when you're installing Linux will ask, oh, I see that you already have another system. Do you want me to partition the hard drive? And you do that there. Any operating system installation will let you partition the hard drive, okay? There's a page there for managing your hard drives, and you can partition your hard drives then if you want. That's not what I'm going to show you here. I'm going to show you how to partition your hard drive on Windows if you already have Windows installed. The third reason, and the most important people usually do this for, is because most computer viruses are targeted to the C operating system, to the C drive. They install in the C drive because they want to target the operating system. So, and I say most because there are a few that don't, and I unfortunately came across one once. So I had my hard drive partitioned, and the virus deleted all my partitions. So that's why I'm saying most. You're gonna be able to protect yourself 90% of the time, okay? But there's gonna be like a chance that won't happen. So don't get overconfident. Not just because you have a partition hard drive, that's no reason for not doing a backup, okay? Always do a backup, okay? So the second reason is that usually the virus target the C drive, because that's the operating system drive. And if you have your hard drive partitioned, you can reformat the C drive to get rid of the virus, because that's the best way to get rid of a virus. A virus is a software that installs in your computer, and you can uninstall, but the people who make the viruses, they're smart, and they kind of spread the virus around your C disk so that even if you uninstall, you still have traces of the virus. So the best way is not even to do a repair of your Windows, for instance, is to actually delete your drive, your C drive, and reinstall from zero, so that you can be certain that you're deleting that virus. So, but if you do that, if you have your hard drive partitioned into C and D, for instance, you won't lose your files if they're stored in the D file, because what you're deleting is your C disk, right? Not the D disk. So that's a big help. Of course, better than a partition disk is if you can have several different physical hard drives, not only because it's easier, you can just unplug them if something happens and you need to reformat your C, so that you don't worry about the extra hard drives, but mostly because, well, your hard drive can always break. So if you have more hard drives, you have backups. Backups are always important in computing. You're never going to get rid of the backups. But basically, that's the biggest reason people partition their hard drive, and that's a really good reason. I myself currently haven't partitioned my hard drive because I have Dropbox, and I use that to protect my files. But back before I used Dropbox, I always partition my hard drive. So I'm going to show you here. What you're going to do is you're going to come to the Windows menu, and you're not going to click there. You're going to right click, okay? Because when you right click, this menu opens, and this is a management menu, and you'll see that you have many management options here, okay? And the one you want is disk management. Now, don't worry if this takes a little while to process stuff, to open or to do the steps here, because the computer is first checking out your system. So the bigger your hard drive, the longer this will take, okay? So here you see that I have my partitions here showed. And most importantly, I want you to see that this right down here, they show differently your physical drives, okay? Your physical. So I have here my physical hard drive, and I have here my CD-ROM. And why am I making this distinction? Because here you see your partitions for each physical drive. In this case, I only have one drive. This is a virtual machine, so you see that my hard drive is actually very small. But what you're gonna want to do is come here on the C and right click, or come up here on the C and right click, okay, and choose shrink volume. So this shrink volume, now this is going to be queuing shrink space. This is going to be analyzing your hard drive. And like I said, the bigger your hard drive, the longer this process will take. So don't worry if this is taking long, okay? Just go do something else. Don't worry about that, because if you have like a 2 terabyte hard drive, this may take several minutes, okay? Maybe even up to half an hour. So don't worry, don't just stay there thinking that everything got stuck. No, this is a process that takes time, okay? And this window will pop up, okay, that says shrink C. The first information will be the total size of your hard drive. So here you see that mine says 129 gigabytes, and the information is going to be in megabytes. So you always have to remember that 1 gigabyte is 1000 megabytes and 1 terabyte is 1000 gigabytes, okay? Then you're going to have the size that's available to shrink, because the computer checked your hard drive, saw what you have, the files you already have, your operating system, and went and looked at what's available to you, what's not being currently used, okay? The third information is actually the one you're going to be able to change, and this information is going to be the information of the amount of space to shrink. What does that mean, amount of space to shrink? The amount of space you want to take away from your C drive to make your second hard drive. So the size you would want your second drive to be. And here you see that there is going to be automatically placed the available shrink space. You don't want that because you want to leave a little bit of C space in case you want to install a new software or something like that, or for your temp files, and for that space that RAM memory can borrow, okay? So what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to go down and place less space here, and right here down here you're going to have the total size that your C drive is going to have after you shrunk. So this here, what you would be ideal for you to aim is to leave this here at 300,000, which would be 300 gigabytes. But that's going to depend on the amount available you have, because if your whole hard drive is 300 gigabytes, you're not going to be able to do that. In my case, for instance, I won't be able, because this whole hard drive is 129 gigabytes. You see here that 41 gigabytes was everything the files and the operating system was using. This is a brand new copy of Windows that I installed in a virtual machine. This has absolutely only the native stuff from Windows installed, no other software, and that's already occupying 40 gigabytes. So you need to think about that, because you're certainly going to want to install other software. You want to leave a space available for your RAM memory to be able to borrow from your C drive, and you want space available for temp files that are going to be saved in your C drive, okay? So you want that available, so you don't want to leave this without wiggle room. And you have to think about what are you a person who's going to have a lot of software installed in your computer? Then you have to leave a lot of space in your hard drive. Are you a person who's going to have just, I don't know, Office or a few? Then you can leave less space. But always think about that. I'm a person with a lot of software, and my C drive, the files and all of that are occupying around 80 gigabytes. So you always have to think about that. For instance, I use Premiere and I was checking the requirements, and Premiere said they needed 8 gigabytes of available space in disk just to install the software, not to use the software, but to install the software. So if you're adding up each software, you need 8 gigabytes here, 10 gigabytes there. You're adding up, you're going to need a lot of space. So try to keep at least 300 gigabytes. If you can, but if you can more, that's better, okay? So, but that's going to depend on your hard drive and how much of that you need for your files. So here I'm going to actually place 20,000. And just because this is a virtual machine that I'm not actually going to use, I'm going to delete afterwards. So I'm not actually going to use this, but you have to think about your hard drive. For instance, I have a 2 terabyte hard drive. When I used to partition my hard drive, and before I used Dropbox, I partitioned all the time. I actually partitioned in half. I left 1 terabyte for operating system and 1 terabyte for files. So here you have 20,000. Here you have how much the C disk is going to keep. So I'm going to click on shrink. And now you'll see that this is going to separate this block here in two. Again, it's going to depend on the size of your hard drive. This may take a little while, okay? Mine went fast because that was a small hard drive and it did that on purpose, okay? So you see that now my disk is separated in 3, right? I have the system reserved that's done. That's a partition that's done when you install Windows. I have my C disk, and I have this unallocated disk. I'm going to click on this unallocated disk, and I'm going to right click on the disk, and I'm going to click on new simple volume, and then I'm going to just go to the next steps of this wizard. So I'm going to go next. This is already okay because it's the right size. Automatically, this is the right size. You don't want to do anything here. You're going to say, oh, but it's a little bit smaller than what you said. You said 20,000 and here is 19,999. That's normal. Oh, that's always like that. Okay, so don't worry about that. Next. This is where you're going to assign the following drive letter. Automatically, the drive letter assigned is the next letter available. In my case, is Z, not D, because I have my Blu-ray disc that's D. But you can come here, click, and choose any one of these letters. They're all available, okay? I'm going to leave on E. You're going to ignore this down here. You're going to click Next. Here, you're going to leave this again as default because you want NTFS file system because that's the Windows file system. And the FAT32 file system only allows you to save files up to 4 gigabytes. The FAT32 file system is a file system used on pen drives. Have you ever tried to save a very large file to a pen drive and they say this file system doesn't accept that size of file? This is why, okay? You say, well, but my pen drive is 32 gigabytes. Why not? But this is why, because the FAT system doesn't allow for more files that are larger than 4 gigabytes. So you want the NTFS, leave this and location unit size default, okay? Don't come here and change this because this would change the unit size. What you want is volume label. You can change this. I'm going to write my documents. You can label this with whatever name you want. Perform quick format check. Leave this enable file and folder compression unchecked and go to Next. And this will give you a quick summary of what you asked to do. And what you want to do is click Finish so that they can allocate this. See, this turned blue. And now my partition is here. My documents, my partition is showing here. My partition is showing here. And most importantly, my partition is going to show here in this PC. See, I have these 3 disks now. My CD drive, my local disk C with the Windows symbol to symbolize that this has the operating system, and my documents that's being treated as a different hard disk, that is there plugged in, and you will treat this like your normal hard disk, like you would treat a pen drive or an external hard drive, except this is virtual, because you're kind of fooling your computer into thinking these are two different files. And this is very important. When you drag a file, let's say I want to drag this file here, Visual Studio, that is in my desktop, and the desktop is in the disk file. You see that if I drag this here, I made a copy. I didn't actually delete this one here, because again, this disk is going to be considered a different disk from the local disk C. So when you're just dragging from one to the other, you're not deleting from one to the other, you're making copies, just as if you would on a pen drive or an external hard drive, okay? So that's all. This was super easy, and this is super useful. So I hope that I managed to answer your question, Gabriela, and that you all like this video. And don't forget to subscribe down there so that you can get notified when I have new videos. And don't forget to check out my courses on Udemy. The link is in the description. And see you next Wednesday with another tip, okay? So see you then.